If someone had told me the Mafia Boss would fall in love with me, I would have assumed it was a death sentence described in prettier words. Because the truth is, he was never supposed to love me. He was supposed to destroy me. I still remember the moment I realized that. Not when his men dragged me into the back of that black car. Not when he leaned over me with those ice-pale eyes and a gun resting almost lazily on his thigh. No. I realized it on a quieter night, much later, when I saw the way he was looking at me. Like I was the glitch in a plan written in blood long before either of us had a choice. But you do not deserve that scene yet. You have to understand what he was meant to erase before you can understand what it meant when he chose not to. My name is Mara. At least that is the name I answer to now. The name the city knows. The one on the forged documents in my apartment, on my pass card at the bank where I spend my days chasing the ghosts of numbers through ledgers and balance sheets. It is not the name my mother whispered when she hid me in that closet the night everything burned. If you listen closely enough, there is always a night when everything burns. Mine began 15 years ago, when I was 10, knees pressed to dusty floorboards, the smell of gasoline heavy in the air. I did not see the men who stormed our house. I saw their shadows under the door, and I heard them. Boots against wood, low voices in a language my father pretended not to understand, the sharp punctuation of gunfire, and my mother's breath catching once, then not again. One of those men was Cassian Vale. I did not know his name then. I only knew the voice, deep, controlled, bored even as he decided who lived and who died in that house. I glimpsed him for 4 seconds when the closet door burst open, and he stared at me, a girl wrapped around a stuffed rabbit, too shocked to scream. His gaze moved over me, assessing, calculating. He raised his gun, then stopped. "Not this one," he said. Those were the first words he ever spoke about me. Not this one. His men burned the house with my parents inside. They left me alive in the wreckage, a useless child, a loose end he was certain the flames would finish for him. They did not. Someone else found me first. That is a story inside another story, and I will unravel it later. What matters now is this. Cassian Vale, heir to the Vale Syndicate, decided I should not exist. And yet I did. In the shadows. In other names. In other lives. 15 years later, I walked into his world on my own feet. Before we continue the story, please drop a comment telling me where you're watching this from. And don't forget to subscribe to Mara's Betrayal. I wish I could say I ended up in his orbit by accident. That fate dragged me there by the hair. That would make me softer, perhaps even forgivable. But I chose him. I was 25 when I began tracing the first threads that led back to him. Numbers at the bank that did not make sense. Shell companies that bled money into black holes that did not officially exist. A charity foundation that spent more on private jets than on the children it claimed to feed. Patterns. I have always been good with patterns. Trauma does that. When your childhood is built on unpredictable violence, your brain spends the rest of its life trying to outrun surprise. The name Vale Holdings did not appear in the ledgers. Men like Cassian never signed their real names. But there were structures I recognized. The way funds vanished, split, reassembled somewhere else. The timing of certain transfers coinciding with certain headlines. Warehouse fire, missing shipment, politician resigning for health reasons. And then there was the club. On paper, it was an exclusive, members-only establishment in the city's old industrial district, recently gentrified into something glittering and obscene. In reality, it was a laundromat for his money, a meeting ground for people who did not trust each other enough to meet anywhere the law could easily touch. The club had a name, Noir, pretentious but accurate. My first night there began with a lie. I stood in front of the mirror in my cramped bathroom, black dress clinging to my body like a secret that chose to be seen. I had painted my mouth red and pinned my hair in a knot I could undo with one tug. I looked like a woman who understood what power men thought they held over her and how to make them waste it. Under the dress taped flat against my ribcage, I wore a different kind of armor. A photograph. The edges were frayed, colors faded. 3 figures. My mother, her hand shielding her eyes from the sun. My father, young and serious. And between them, a child with untidy dark hair and eyes that looked almost black in the light. They had died nameless in the city's archives, victims of an accidental gas explosion. The file was thin. Too thin. I pressed the photograph harder against my skin until the past bit into the present, and then I turned away from the mirror. The plan was simple enough to explain and impossible to execute without risk. I would get close to whoever ran Noir. I would trace the money. I would find proof linking the Veil Syndicate to that old house fire, and I would deliver it to the people who had saved me as a child and taught me how to disappear. People who hated Cassian Vale more than I did. I did not tell them I had already seen his face. I arrived at Noir just before midnight. The street outside was slick with recent rain, neon smearing the puddles into poisonous colors. A line had formed at the velvet rope, women in dresses more expensive than my rent, men with watches that could probably buy the entire block twice. The bouncer's gaze slid over the line and froze on me. He was large enough to fill the doorway on his own, his neck thick with muscle and ink. One look at him, and I recognized the type. Ex-military. Turned private muscle. The kind of man who could break your jaw and sleep afterward. Invitation, he said. I held out the heavy black card I had stolen from a client at the bank. He had bragged about Noir, about the back rooms, about how the real fun began once you proved you were not afraid to bleed. The bouncer checked the card, then me. His gaze lingered a second too long, cataloging. My scars were hidden, but some things leak through the cracks. Posture, the way you breathe, the way your eyes flick without your permission. What's your name? He asked. Mara Lark, I lied smoothly. The forged identity slid over my tongue like practiced sin. He stepped aside. The door opened and sound spilled out. Music, low and pulsing. The hum of conversation. The occasional high, sharp burst of laughter that sounded more like a challenge than joy. Inside, Noir was built like a theater. The main floor opened into a vast room lit in shadows and gold. A bar sliced through the darkness, bottles glowing like jewels. Tables curved along the walls, half hidden by gauzy curtains, offering privacy without true concealment. Men in sharp suits, women in backless dresses, whispers, deals, the clink of glasses. Predators dressed as patrons. I walked to the bar, each step measured. The bartender looked as though he had been carved from the same wood as the bar. Lean, polished, eyes too watchful. He glanced up as I approached. "What can I get you?" he asked. "Something that burns," I said. He smiled faintly. "We have many varieties of pain here." "I trust your judgment." He poured amber liquid into a glass and slid it toward me. His fingers brushed mine by accident or design. I could not tell. I took a sip. It tasted like regret and expensive oak. I let myself linger, watching the reflections in the mirror behind the bar. Noir was a place built on sightlines. You could watch almost every corner from here without turning your head. That was when I felt it. A gaze. Heavy. Deliberate. You can always tell the difference between glances and a stare that wants to peel you open. I kept my eyes on the mirror. At first, I did not see him. Only fragments, dark suit, white shirt, the gleam of a ring on a hand resting lightly on the back of a leather booth. The way the crowd parted around him without realizing they were moving. Then the angle shifted, and I saw his face. Older than the memory that haunted me, of course. 15 years had carved deeper lines around his mouth, sharpened the planes of his cheeks. His hair was darker now, cut close on the sides, longer on top. The boyish veneer he might once have worn was gone, stripped away by time and violence. But the eyes were the same. Clear, pale gray, like a winter sky that had already decided it would not spare you. Cassian Vale. The name beat in my chest in time with the music, loud enough I was afraid someone else would hear it. He was watching me. Not with the lazy, assessing greed I had felt from other men tonight, but with a stillness that made the room feel suddenly smaller. His body was relaxed, one arm draped along the back of the booth, fingers curving around the glass on the table. His face gave nothing away. Predators do not need to bare their teeth to be terrifying. The absence of motion is its own threat. I told myself he could not recognize me. I was a child the last time he saw me, smoke stinging my eyes, hair wild, cheeks wet. Time changes faces. Pain changes them even more. I was wrong. The bartender spoke, breaking the moment. "First time here?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Who invited you?" A common question here, disguised as casual conversation. Noir did not welcome strangers without purpose. Every guest was a transaction in disguise. "A client," I said. He insisted I should see it at least once. "And where is this generous client?" I let my mouth curve in a small, dismissive smile. "Drunk somewhere. Probably making a mistake he will pay me to fix on Monday." The bartender studied me. "What do you fix?" "Numbers." An accountant at Noir. His smile deepened, but his eyes did not. "Careful. You might get recruited." "By who?" The bartender's gaze flicked behind me, just once. "By the house." The hair on my arms rose. I did not turn. Not yet. I felt him approach before I heard a single footstep, the air shifting, the hum of voices around us dipping almost imperceptibly. The bartender straightened, not by much, but enough to signal that someone had stepped into a different gravity. A hand came to rest on the bar beside my glass. Long fingers, veins visible beneath the skin, the knuckles marked by faint scars. No ostentatious jewelry, just a simple, heavy silver ring. His voice slid down my spine like a cold blade. "Leave it," Cassian said to the bartender. "I will take care of her tab." The bartender nodded and moved away with practiced efficiency. Not fear. Respect forged from fear long past. I counted to 3 before I let myself turn. Up close, Cassian was worse. Distance is a kindness. It blurs edges. Here, standing inches away, I could see everything the years had done to him. They had refined him, honed him, sanded away anything soft. His suit fit like it had been built on his body. His tie was dark, his shirt open at the collar, as if even fabric did not dare touch his throat without permission. Is that not dangerous? I asked before he could speak again. He tilted his head slightly. What? Announcing you are taking care of a stranger's tab in a place like this. I kept my tone light. You might give the wrong impression. What impression is that? That you are generous. The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile. You think generosity is dangerous, miss? He left the sentence open, bait hanging in the air between us. Mara, I said. I did not add the surname. Let him work for it. Mara, he repeated, tasting it, testing for lies. I do not believe in generosity. Then what is this? I gestured to the space between us. The drink, the bar. A calculation? Of course. He leaned closer, not enough to be indecent. Just enough that I could see the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw, the almost invisible scar that cut through his right eyebrow, a remnant of some old fight. In my experience, he said quietly, no one comes to Noir by accident, so when someone new appears alone, I am curious. Curiosity is expensive. I am indulging it. A hook, baited and sharp. What exactly are you curious about? I asked. Which part of you is real? I went still. You have known me for less than a minute. He studied my face as if he had all the time in the world. Long enough, he said. The dress is a costume. The bracelet on your wrist is cheap, worn at the edges. Your shoes are practical, not indulgent. Your nails are not painted. The way you hold your glass tells me you drink for control, not for pleasure. He paused, his gaze locking onto mine. And your eyes, he added. Your eyes are not afraid of this place. They are measuring it. My fingers tightened around the glass. Perhaps I simply like expensive cocktails. You did not ask the price. I trust the house, I said, echoing the bartender's phrase. His eyes cooled, if such a thing were possible. You should not. The house is the last thing you should trust. And yet you are part of it, I said. Or do you simply enjoy paying the bills? A few people at the nearest table had gone quiet, listening. I felt the shift, the subtle intake of breath when you realize someone has spoken too freely to the wrong man. Cassian's gaze did not leave mine. Many people enjoy playing with blades, he said, until they remember the blade has an owner. And which are you? I asked. The blade or the owner? For the first time, something almost like amusement touched his eyes. Do you always ask so many questions? Only when I want answers. And what answers are you looking for in a place like this? Mara, who does not give her surname. I hesitated. The truth was too dangerous. The lies needed to be close enough to it to be believable. Work, I said. Opportunity. I heard Noir rewards usefulness. Who told you that? A drunk man with more money than sense. Then he occasionally tells the truth, Cassian said. He straightened, and I felt an absurd sense of loss at the small increase in distance. He was air in a burning room, dangerous and necessary. If you are looking for work, he said, you should not waste your time at the bar. Where should I waste it, then? He nodded toward the upper level of Noir, where a staircase curled into the shadows. Upstairs, glanced at the staircase, then back at him. Is that where you keep the job applications? That is where I decide whether you will be useful, he said. And if I am not? His gaze dragged across my face, lingering for a fraction of a second on my mouth, my throat returning finally to my eyes. Then you will have enjoyed an overpriced drink, he said, at my expense. We both knew that was a lie. I set the glass down. The liquid shivered, Lead the way, I said. As he turned, I saw it again. That brief flicker in his eyes, gone as soon as I noticed it. Recognition. Like he was looking at a painting he had seen once, long ago, in a room full of smoke and ash, and could not quite remember the frame. I followed him up the stairs, heart hammering. Every step felt like a descent, though we were moving higher. The music faded, replaced by a quieter, more dangerous hush. At the top of the stairs, a hallway stretched away, lined with doors. Cassian led me past most of them without a glance, to the last door on the left. He opened it without knocking. His office. I had imagined what it would look like. I was wrong. It did not scream wealth. It whispered it. A large desk, sleek, dark wood. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city's bones, rusted train tracks, warehouses, the distant suggestion of water. A single painting on the wall. An abstract mess of blacks and reds, like someone had tried to capture violence itself and failed. He closed the door behind us with a quiet click that sounded louder than any lock. I stood in the center of the room, suddenly aware of how alone we were. No noise from the club reached here. The silence pressed against my eardrums. Cassian moved behind the desk and leaned against it, crossing his arms. Now, he said, we can talk without an audience. Is that what you want? I asked. Conversation? In my experience, conversation reveals more than confession. His gaze sharpened. So, tell me, Mara, who are you really? I told you, I said, buying time. I work with numbers. Everyone works with something. That does not make them interesting. His tone cooled. The clients who come to Noir do not invite strangers without reason. Who brought you here? I weighed my options. Lie too far, and he would see it. Name the actual client, and I would burn a bridge I might need later. His name is Adler, I said finally. True, technically. He mentioned you needed someone discreet who could make problems vanish from balance sheets. Cassian watched me in absolute silence. Adler talks too much. Most men do. That almost smile again. And what problems do you want to make vanish, Mara? Debt, I said. Past mistakes. The usual. You do not strike me as someone who makes mistakes, he said quietly. You strike me as someone who survives other people's. The words landed like a hand on my throat. For a heartbeat, the room blurred. I saw my mother's hand reaching for the closet door, heard my father shouting something in a language he had promised never to teach me, smelled the gasoline. I blinked hard. Perhaps you overestimate me, I said. Perhaps I am simply good at recognizing ghosts. And what am I the ghost of? I asked before I could stop myself. He pushed away from the desk and approached, slow, deliberate. My pulse thundered. He stopped a breath away, close enough that I had to tilt my head to keep his gaze. He looked at me as if cataloging every feature, every line, the way a man might examine a crime scene he had almost forgotten. His voice, when he spoke, was softer, but no less lethal. A house, he said. Fire. A girl who should have died. My blood turned to ice. I have seen your face before, Cassian Vale murmured, but not with that name. He leaned closer, and for the first time in 15 years, I heard my real name spoken aloud. Tell me, he said, his breath ghosting my ear. Why did you come back to me, little Lyra? The world tilted. I did not move. I could not. His voice, my real name, split me open like a blade pressed against old scar tissue. It had been buried so long I sometimes wondered if I had invented it. Lyra. A child's name. A ghost's name. A name I had sealed under false documents and forged histories and silence. How? The word barely scraped out. How do you know that name? Cassian didn't step back. He didn't need to. His presence filled the room, pressed against my ribs, stole the air from my lungs. I never forget unfinished work, he said. My pulse cracked like glass. You think I'm unfinished? You were supposed to die in that fire. His eyes sharpened. Yet here you stand. There it was. Not a threat. A fact. Spoken without guilt, without hesitation, without the slightest flicker of remorse. He had killed my parents, burned my home, spared me by accident. And now, 15 years later, he remembered. My body screamed at me to run, but running from Cassian Vale was the fastest route to the morgue, so I did the one thing I could still control. I breathed. You're mistaken, I said. My name is... His hand shot out, not touching me, but stopping millimeters from my jaw, a silent warning. It was the closest thing to danger without contact. A promise. Don't insult me, he murmured. His voice felt like the heat from an open furnace, all-consuming without touching flame. If you were here to hide, he continued, you would have chosen any other place in the city. Yet you walked into mine. His gaze glinted. Why? It wasn't a question. It was a scalpel, and he was cutting. I forced my face to remain calm. I had prepared for everything except recognition. My disguise was flawless. The years had changed me. New hair, new posture, new name, new city sectors. But of course Cassian wouldn't forget the one loose thread in a massacre he orchestrated with surgical precision. So I didn't deny the past. Not directly. Denial only works on men who want to be lied to. Cassian wanted truth. Or blood. Believe what you want, I said. He moved his hand away slowly, deliberately, as if showing me mercy was a calculation he could still revoke. I believe what I see, he said. And what I see is a woman who has been preparing to walk into my world for a very long time. He circled me, not fast, not slow, but with the unhurried certainty of a man who owned every inch of space he crossed. My breath caught as he passed behind me. I felt him even without sight. Heat, danger, the phantom weight of his presence along my spine. You're not scared, he observed. Interesting? I should be? Everyone should be afraid of me. The way he said it, no arrogance, just fact, sent a ripple down my back. I don't fear things that don't matter, I said. That stopped him. He stepped in front of me again, closer than before. Close enough that I could see the faint shadow beneath his cheekbones, the slow rise of his breath. His eyes pinned me. Are you telling me, he said softly, that I don't matter? A blade disguised as a whisper. I swallowed. I'm telling you, I don't know what you want from me. A lie. A necessary one. Cassian exhaled, a small, controlled breath that could have meant amusement or impatience, or a silent decision to dissect me further. You want answers, he said. I can give you answers, but not for free. Is this a negotiation? No, a test. A test, of course. Men like Cassian didn't collect information. They extracted it, slowly, carefully, like pulling wire from flesh until the truth bled out. And what do I get? I asked. If I pass? You get to stay alive. He tilted his head. For now. There it was. The quiet sincerity of a man who had ended more lives than he kept. I met his gaze without blinking. Then give me the test. A dangerous flicker passed behind his eyes. Approval, curiosity, hunger. I couldn't tell, but something inside him tightened, sharpened. He reached behind him and slid open a drawer in the desk. When he turned back, he held a gun. My throat constricted. Not because of the weapon itself, I'd been around guns before, but because of the way he held it so casually. Like death was just an accessory he carried out of habit. "Relax," he murmured. "This isn't for you." He walked toward the window, aimed without looking, and fired once. The silencer swallowed the explosion, but the impact cracked the night. Down below, a man in a dark coat collapsed in the alley behind Noir. I jerked back. Cassian didn't. He lowered the weapon and turned to me, unreadable. "That man has been watching you since you arrived," he said. "Care to explain why?" My stomach lurched. I hadn't seen anyone following me tonight. But it wasn't impossible. The people who saved me years ago, the ones who trained me, sheltered me, they had their own agenda. And I had never told them where I was going tonight. If they sent someone to track me, it was without my knowledge. But Cassian didn't wait for an answer. He stalked toward me again, each step precise, slow, unbearably controlled. "Last chance," he said. "Who was he?" My heart slammed against my ribs. I kept my breathing even. "I don't know him." Cassian studied me. His silence was worse than any threat. It spread through the room like cold water. "Tell me," he said quietly, "why you're lying." This was the moment. The thin line between survival and exposure. He didn't know everything. My goal, my plan, my allies. But he knew enough to put me on the edge of a blade. So I leaned into the only thing I still had. Shadows. "I came alone," I said. "If someone followed me, I didn't know." Convenient. True. His jaw tightened. A subtle movement barely there, but the room felt it. The air thickened. Even the light seemed to dim. Then he stepped even closer. He was inches from me, too close for breath, too close for lies, too close for anything except the blunt truth humming under my skin. "Look at me, Lyra." I didn't want to, but I did. "Your eyes don't match your lies." His voice dropped. "That is a dangerous flaw. I told you the truth. You told me a truth." He brushed a knuckle along his jaw, a gesture not directed at me, yet somehow tightening every nerve in my body. But not the one I asked for. He circled me again, slower this time. "You don't smell like fear," he said. "You don't sound like desperation. Yet you came here with purpose." I didn't react. He leaned down, his breath brushing my ear. Purpose is the most dangerous thing someone can bring into my world. My hands curled at my sides. Then why bring me here? To see if your purpose should concern me. I turned my head just enough to meet his gaze again. "And does it?" He held my stare. Long enough that I felt something shift, like a door cracking open in a dark room. "I haven't decided," he said. A pause. Then, "Tell me something true about yourself." I froze. He wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was asking because he needed a foothold in me. Something to anchor, to pry open later. "Something small," he added. "So I know you're capable of honesty." The irony almost made me laugh. He wanted honesty? "Fine." "I hate the smell of gasoline," I said quietly. A beat. "I see." His voice was unreadable. "Because of the fire." I didn't respond. He stepped in front of me again, and this time, his eyes softened by a fraction. Not warmth, not sympathy, but recognition. The kind that linked two people through something cruel and irreversible. "I remember that night," he said. "More than you think." My nails dug into my palms. "Do you remember why?" His jaw shifted, and something darker flickered behind his eyes. Not remorse, not guilt. Memory. "Yes," he said. I remember exactly why I was there. I waited. He didn't continue. Not yet. Instead, he walked to the leather chair behind his desk and lowered himself into it, still watching me with that predator's stillness. "You will work for me," he said. The words hit harder than the gunshot. "What?" My voice cracked. "You want answers. You want truth. You want something from me." He steepled his fingers. "So you will stay close. Here, under my watch." That wasn't the deal. Deals require consent. His eyes were ice. Tests do not. A tremor went through my stomach. "And if I refuse?" His tone didn't change. "Then I will assume you entered Noir with the intention to deceive me." A long pause. "And I will handle you accordingly." There it was. The promise of destruction. The ghost of the man who had burned my family alive. I swallowed. What exactly would I be doing? "Whatever I decide is useful." He leaned back slightly. "You are intelligent, observant, comfortable with numbers, comfortable with lies. You don't know that." He raised a brow. "You walked into my office under a false identity. I know exactly what you're comfortable with." The air tightened again. Then he added, "You start tomorrow." It wasn't a request. "We're not done," I said. "You haven't told me why you killed that man in the alley." He looked at me as if I'd asked why water was wet. "He was watching you." "That's not a reason." "It is for me." My pulse stuttered. "And if you're lying about not knowing him," Cassian added, "I will find out." He stood. The movement was sudden, controlled, but final, like the closing of a metal door. "Come here." I froze. "Why?" "I want to see your eyes." My breath thinned. "You already did." "Not closely enough." Everything in me screamed no, but the word never left my lips. I stepped forward. One step, another, until the desk pressed against my hips, and he stood on the other side, inches away. His eyes searched mine, patient, methodical, terrifyingly calm. "You're hiding something," he murmured. "But whatever it is, you believe you can survive me." He leaned in just slightly. "Most people who think that are wrong." "I'm not most people." "No," he agreed softly. "You're not." He lifted his hand, slowly, as if giving me time to pull away. I didn't. He brushed a single finger under my chin, tilting my face up. A gesture that felt like both an examination and a claim. His gaze burned through me. "This," he said quietly, "is going to be interesting." He stepped back. The spell shattered. The door swung open. One of his men standing there. "Boss," the man said, "we have a situation downstairs." Cassian didn't look away from me. "Of course we do," he murmured. Then louder, "Handle it." The man nodded and left. Cassian picked up a small black card from the desk and held it out to me. "Your access pass. Tomorrow. Noon. Don't be late." I didn't reach for it. His eyes cooled. "Take it, Lyra." I forced my hand to move. His fingers brushed mine as I took the card. A spark shot through me. Not attraction, but recognition. Two lives once separated by fire, now bound again by something far more dangerous. "Good night," he said. It sounded like a warning. I turned toward the door, but just as I reached it, his voice slid down my spine again. "Lyra." I stopped. Slowly, I looked back. Cassian Vale watched me with the quiet certainty of a man who had already marked something as his. "Next time," he said, "don't lie to me." The door closed behind me, like the world shifting into place. And in the hallway, my breath finally broke. He remembered me. He wasn't supposed to. And now, it wasn't just my mission at risk. It was me. I forced myself to walk down the corridor like my bones were not shaking. The murmur of noir filtered back as I descended the stairs. Music, conversation, cigarettes, perfume. Life continued, oblivious to the fact that the man upstairs had just slit a throat in the alley and dragged a dead girl from a burning house back into his orbit. The bartender glanced up as I approached, eyes flicking once toward the staircase behind me, then to my face. He didn't ask questions. Wise men in places like this learned to pretend not to see the smoke. "Another?" he asked, nodding toward my mostly untouched drink. "No," I said. "I've had enough for tonight." He watched me a second longer than necessary. "Your tab has been taken care of." I noticed. "Will you be back?" His tone was neutral. His eyes were not. "Yes," I said. It was both a promise and a sentence. Outside, the night hit my face like a cold slap. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement slick. I stood on the threshold of noir for a heartbeat and closed my eyes. The alley behind the building was quiet. Too quiet. I walked toward it anyway. The body Cassian had dropped wasn't lying where I'd expected. For a moment, panic sliced through me. Had he ordered cleanup that fast? Would there even be evidence left that any of this had happened? Then I saw it, further down the alley, half in shadow. He had rolled the man onto his back. The shot had been precise, clean through the head, no messy spray against the brick. Cassian did not like mess unless it served a purpose. I forced myself closer. The man's face was pale in the yellow streetlight. He was in his late 30s, maybe, clean-shaven, hair cropped short, dressed in an unremarkable coat, jeans, boots. A ghost's uniform, meant to blend in, to disappear in crowds. I knew him. The recognition hit like a punch to the sternum. His name was Ernst. He had been one of my first handlers when I was taken in by the people who hated the Veil Syndicate. He taught me how to follow a target without being seen, how to change my gait so I looked like a different person, how to tell at a glance whether a car had been tampered with. He also taught me how to lie without flinching. And now he was dead at Cassian's feet. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. I crouched beside him, fingers hovering over his coat, not yet touching. For a moment, the alley wavered, splitting into two overlapping scenes. This one now, and another from years ago, when Ernst had pulled me out of a subway station after I'd nearly passed out from a flashback. "You breathe through it," he'd said. "You do not let the memory have you for free." I breathed. Shallow, then deeper. Ernst's eyes were open. I reached out and gently closed them. It felt like sealing a door. "What were you doing here?" I whispered. He had not told me he was following me. He hadn't needed to. The people who'd taken me in operated like that. Need to know compartmentalized paranoia turned into a system. They must have gotten wind that I was making moves toward the Veil Syndicate. They must have decided I needed backup, or surveillance. Trust was always conditional in our world. I searched his pockets quickly, fingers efficient despite the tremor in them. Wallet, standard IDs, a folded piece of paper. No phone. They had stopped carrying those on certain jobs. The paper was damp, but the ink held. A narrow printout of an address and a time. Noir, midnight. Then my alias, Mara Lark, underlined twice. They had been tracking me, protecting me, or positioning me. Cassian had killed Ernst not because he recognized him, but because he had been watching me. And now I had a body at my feet, and a war on both sides of me. I stared at the piece of paper until the letters blurred, then stuffed it into my own pocket. There was nothing I could do for Ernst now, except keep his death from being entirely meaningless. From the mouth of the alley, the city hummed. Traffic, distant sirens, the faint echo of laughter. Noir's sign glowed overhead, washing the wet pavement in a soft, malignant gold. I straightened. I should call it in. Tell them Ernst was down. Tell them Cassian had eyes sharper than advertised. Tell them I had been recognized. They would order me to abort, extract, vanish. That would be the logical move. Walk away. Cut my losses. Let the past burn itself out without feeding it again. But the image of Cassian's face, the way he had looked at me and spoken my real name, had already taken root in my chest. He remembered that night, and he had chosen to keep me alive again. Once could be a mistake. Twice was something else. I left the alley and blended into the crowd. Noir's door closed behind me like a mouth swallowing secrets. My apartment was in a bland building with peeling paint and a landlord who didn't care whether I lived or died as long as the rent cleared. I liked it for that. Indifference was safer than curiosity. The stairwell smelled faintly of damp carpet and someone's bad cooking. On the third floor, Mrs. Kovach's door was open a crack. I heard the flicker of her television, some old drama with voices overlapping. Her cat watched me with sleepy malice from the railing. Inside my apartment, everything was exactly as I'd left it. Couch, small table, bookshelves with stacks of tax law and forensic accounting manuals that would have put most people to sleep in under 3 minutes. The narrow bed in the corner, the wardrobe, the small safe hidden under the loose floorboard beneath the wardrobe. I locked the door behind me, slid the chain, then went straight to it. The safe opened with a familiar click. Inside were the fragments of the life I did not show anyone. Fake passports under different names. A gun wrapped in an old scarf. A child's bracelet melted and twisted from heat. And a file. Cassian Vale's name, printed in sharp black letters on the cover. I set the file on the table. For a long moment I just looked at it. Then I opened it. Photographs, surveillance reports, financial spreadsheets that mapped his known businesses and the probable funnel points for his unseen ones. Notes written in Ernst's tight, clinical hand. I flipped through them slowly. Cassian emerging from a courthouse after some legal farce that had gone in his favor. Cassian at a charity gala, half smiling for the cameras, hand resting lightly on the arm of some politician's wife. Cassian stepping out of a black car outside a warehouse, flanked by shadows I knew were armed, even so they stood casually. He looked different in each frame, adaptable, controlled, always dangerous. On the last page there was a single line, underlined in red. Subject does not make mistakes, he cannot turn to his advantage. I set the file aside, my fingers tightening. He had recognized me tonight. That was not a mistake. So what was the advantage he intended to carve out of me? I exhaled slowly and pulled out my phone. There was a number I didn't have saved under any name, but my fingers knew it. I entered it, stared at the screen for 3 breaths, then hit dial. It rang twice. Report, a voice said. No greeting. I didn't bother with one. Ernst is dead, I said. Silence. How? Cassian shot him, I said. Outside Noir. Headshot. Fast. Clean. Was he made? Maybe. Maybe not. Cassian said Ernst was watching me. And was he? I looked at the piece of damp paper I had taken from Ernst's pocket. Yes, I said quietly. Another pause. "You weren't informed we put a tail on you," the voice said. It wasn't a question. "No. That's by design. Too much transparency gets agents killed. Ernst is dead. That was a calculated risk." My hand tightened around the phone. "Calculated by whom?" "You're emotional," the voice noted. "That's unlike you, Lyra." I closed my eyes. "Don't call me that. You're the one who went back to where Lyra died." Heat crept into my face, sharp and ugly. "I went where the money led," I said. "It led to Noir. And beyond Noir, to him. So you made contact." It wasn't approval, just assessment. "Yes." "And?" He remembered me. That earned me a longer silence. "Explain." "He knew my face. He knew the fire. He knew my real name." I swallowed. "He offered me a job." "You accepted?" He didn't frame it as an offer. The voice hummed, low and thoughtful. Paper rustled on the other end, or maybe it was just habit. "This complicates things," he said. "No," I said. "This is what we wanted. Access, proximity. I'm inside now. You're not inside yet. You're on the doorstep of a man who has twice chosen not to kill you. Which means he thinks are useful, or entertaining." The word made something twist in my chest. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. The voice paused, then said, "Go to work tomorrow, see what he gives you. Observe. Report. Do not act without instruction. I don't need to be reminded how to. Lyra." Sharp, cold, a warning. "You are not a free agent," he said. "You are a weapon pointed where we tell you. Do you understand?" I stared at the file spread open on my table. Cassian's eyes stared back from a photograph, gray and distant. "I understand," I said. "Good. And Lyra." "What?" "If he remembered you, he is already thinking about why you walked through his door. Do not underestimate the possibility that he is letting you think you are infiltrating him while he does the same to you." "I'm aware." "Then act like it." The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly and set it on the table, next to Cassian's file. For a long time, I sat there. The apartment was silent except for the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the occasional distant sound from the hallway. I could almost pretend the city didn't exist outside my walls. But Cassian's voice kept echoing in my head. "Tell me, why did you come back to me, little Lyra?" I had never gone to him in the first place, not willingly. I had been a child pressed into a closet while monsters moved through my home. Now I was walking into the monster's den by choice. Purpose is the most dangerous thing someone can bring into my world. He wasn't wrong. I undressed slowly, as if my clothes weighed more than fabric, and stood under the shower until the water ran from hot to barely warm. It smelled metallic, faintly like the pipes it traveled through, not like gasoline. That was in my head, not here. Still, the memory clung to my skin. When I finally lay down, sleep came like a thief, taking me somewhere I didn't want to go. I was in the house. Our house. Before it burned. Sunlight slanted through the kitchen window. Dust motes hung in the air, spinning lazily, as if time itself had slowed down to watch. My mother stood at the stove, humming some half-forgotten melody, her hair pinned into a loose knot. My father sat at the table, reading a newspaper he pretended not to care about, glasses sliding down his nose. I was drawing. A field. A sky. A house. A bad copy of the one we were in. "Lyra," my mother said gently, "don't press so hard. You'll tear the paper." I looked up at her and laughed. My teeth were too big for my mouth. The door exploded inward. Heat. Noise. Men. I saw them this time. Faces blurred at the edges, eyes hard. They moved through the room with clinical urgency. My father shouted, lunged. A gun flashed. He fell. My mother's hand grabbed my arm, shoved me toward the hallway, toward the closet. "Quiet," she whispered. "Whatever you hear, you stay quiet, little star. Do you understand?" I nodded, eyes wide, throat locked. She pushed me into darkness. The smell of old winter coats and dust filled my nose. I heard them. Footsteps. Voices. Gasoline pouring, thick and acrid. And then, that voice. "Cassian's. You are certain this is the right house?" A second voice replied, low and tense. Names I didn't understand. A debt that had not been paid. A warning ignored. "What about the child?" someone asked. A pause. "Kill them all," the second voice snapped. "Every root." Silence. Then, "Not this one," Cassian said. The closet door flew open. Light. Smoke. The outline of a figure in a dark coat, gun in hand, face half-shadowed. Those eyes, silver and distant, landed on me. He took me in the way he took everything in, quickly, ruthlessly, cataloging. Then his gaze flicked to the hallway behind me. He raised the gun. I flinched. The shot went past me, into the dark. A man behind me groaned, dropped. Cassian looked at me again. "Not this one," he repeated to someone over his shoulder. "Why?" the impatient voice demanded. The second man stepped into view, sharper features, anger twisting his mouth. His suit was cheaper than Cassian's, his tie too tight. The name surfaced now, older and sharper than in the dream. Ryan Vale, Cassian's older brother. "She's a child," Cassian said. "That never stopped you before." "Children grow," he replied. "Sometimes into allies, sometimes into leverage, sometimes into witnesses," Ryan hissed. Cassian's eyes cooled. "I never leave witnesses." "Yet here she is." A pause. Smoke thickened in the air. Cassian turned back to me. Our eyes met. "Are you a witness, little star?" he asked in my dream, voice strange and soft. I tried to speak, but the dream wouldn't let me. My throat closed. My hands shook. His gaze swept over my face once more, then away. "Not this one," he said again, final, unyielding. "We do not waste bullets on what we can use later." Ryan stared at him, fury boiling. "You're making a mistake." "If I am," Cassian replied, "it will be mine to correct." He turned and walked away, taking the others with him. The fire blossomed. My mother screamed. I woke up choking. The room was dark, my skin damp with sweat, my heart pounding as if I'd been running. For a disorienting second, I smelled smoke. Then the scent dissolved into nothing, leaving only the thin, dusty air of my apartment. I sat up slowly and pressed my palms to my eyes. Pieces of memory shifted into place. I had always remembered the shadows, the gun, the words, not this one. I had not remembered Ryan. This changes nothing, I told myself. But it did. My parents' deaths had not been random. They had been a calculated strike in a war between brothers, between syndicates, between debts unpaid. And Cassian had spared me not out of mercy. He had spared me because he believed he could use me. Later. Now later had arrived. When dawn finally filtered pale and indifferent through the window, I was already dressed. I wore a simple black blouse, charcoal trousers, low-heeled boots. My hair was braided and twisted into a knot. No jewelry this time, except a watch with a cracked face. Professional, unremarkable, forgettable from a distance. The card Cassian had given me burned in my pocket all the way to Noir. In the daylight, the club looked almost ordinary. The building was just another reclaimed warehouse in a district full of them. No velvet rope, no line, just a dark door set back from the street and a camera watching from above. I pressed the card to the sensor near the entrance. It beeped once. The lock clicked. Inside, Noir without its evening mask felt skeletal. The lights were dim, the bar empty, the stage dark. Staff moved quietly, cleaners, technicians, people who made sure the theater could open again when the sun went down. A man in a dark shirt and shoulder holster waited near the base of the stairs. He did not bother with a greeting. "Boss is expecting you," he said. "I'm flattered," I replied. He did not smile. We climbed. At the top, the hallway felt narrower than last night, as if the walls had leaned in while I slept. The guard led me to the same door, knocked once, then opened it. Cassian stood at the window, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed. He turned as I entered. Very slowly a smile touched his mouth. Not kind, not cruel. Something older. "Good," he said. "You're not late." It was only then I saw I wasn't alone. Someone else was sitting in the chair across from his desk, legs crossed, fingers drumming a slow rhythm on the armrest. As Cassian stepped aside, the stranger stood. My blood turned to ice. Because I recognized this man, too. Not from photographs. From a funeral that had never happened. From fire. From my dreams. Rian Vale, Cassian's brother, and the man who had ordered my death. He smiled at me like we were long-lost acquaintances meeting at a cafe. "So," he said softly, eyes gleaming, "this is the girl you should have killed." Cassian's gaze flicked between us, and in that moment I understood. I was not just walking into the hands of a man who had failed to destroy me. I was standing between two brothers who might both decide to finish the job. And they were not on the same side. "Sit down, Lyra," Cassian murmured. "We have family matters to discuss." Cassian's office suddenly felt smaller, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. Ryan straightened when I stepped closer, eyes flicking over me with slow, disdainful curiosity. He had the same bone structure as Cassian, but where Cassian's cold was controlled, Ryan's was restless, edged with something brittle and volatile. His suit was immaculate, but there was impatience in the way he adjusted the cuffs, like fabric itself was an inconvenience. "I have to admit," he said, "I expected you to be unimpressive." "Disappointed?" I asked. He smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "On the contrary, I enjoy knowing exactly what I'm about to erase." "Enough," Cassian said quietly. Ryan's gaze slid to his brother. "You brought me here, Cass. Do not act surprised that I want to evaluate your project." "I did not bring you here to evaluate anything," Cassian replied. "I brought you here to listen." "Listen to what?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "To you justifying why a loose end from 15 years ago is breathing in our office." "Our office, not his. Ours." The possessive made something sharp twist in my stomach. Cassian moved around the desk and sat down, motioning to the chair opposite him. "Sit," he said to me. It sounded like a command given to a weapon, not a guest. I sat. Ryan remained standing, pacing in a slow arc near the window, like a caged animal resisting the idea of stillness. "I remember you," Ryan said suddenly, looking at me again. "You were smaller, less composed." His head tilted. "What did they feed you all these years? Discipline? Hate?" "Fire," I said. "You gave it to me." He laughed once, low and delighted. "You see? Sharp. I like her." "That is not reassuring," Cassian said. I watched the exchange, the currents shifting between them. They moved like men who had spent their lives circling the same table. never quite sitting on the same side. "You were supposed to kill her," Ryan said, turning back to Cassian. "I remember that much clearly. You argued with me in that hallway like some moralist fresh out of school." "Not this one," you said. "We can use her." "And you disagreed," Cassian said. "I disagreed because sentiment is weakness," Ryan snapped. "And weakness in our line of work becomes a funeral budget." His gaze sharpened. "Now look at her. Trained, polished, uninvited in our home. Do you really think that is coincidence?" "No," Cassian said calmly. "I think it is inevitable." He looked at me. "Tell him," he said. "Tell my brother why you are here." There was no safe version of the truth. Every path I chose turned into a blade at some point. I wrapped my hands around the edge of the armrests to keep them steady. "I followed the money," I said. "It led to the club, to your shell companies, to missing shipments and politicians who resign too early and don't ask for severance." Rian's brows lifted. "An accountant." "A forensic one," I replied. "There is a difference." "A number rat walked into Noir," he mused. "All those screens and cameras downstairs, and we didn't see the teeth until she was in the boss's office. Very poetic." "You see poetry," Cassian said. "I see an opportunity." "An opportunity to do what?" Ryan demanded. "Invite a potential informant into our books?" Cassian's gaze didn't leave my face. "To see who trained her. To see who has been using the ghost of a dead child as their weapon." The room stilled. He knew. Not everything, but enough. Ryan's stare cut into me. "Who sent you?" he asked. "Say the name, or I will start guessing with my hands." "You will do nothing," Cassian said softly. Ryan's head snapped toward him. "She is a security breach." "She is an asset," Cassian countered. "An asset for who?" Cassian didn't answer. The air grew heavy. I felt their focus like twin spotlights. Two predators, neither willing to yield the kill, circling the same piece of meat. I was tired of being that. So I stepped over the line they had drawn and carved one of my own. "I wasn't sent," I said. "Not at first. I saw the patterns at the bank and I followed them because I wanted to know why my parents died in a fire the city pretended never happened. I wanted to know the names of the men who walked through my house that night." "And when you found them?" Ryan asked. "I was planning to bury them," I replied. "Carefully, quietly, with numbers so clean they would look like accidents." Ryan's laugh was a rough exhale. "You thought you would kill us with spreadsheets?" "If necessary." "That is adorable," he said. "It is efficient," I corrected. Cassian watched me with such unblinking intensity that I had to force myself not to look away. "When did they find you?" he asked. His voice had changed. There was still steel in it, but it was wrapped around something quieter. "Who?" I asked, my own voice dry. "The people who took you after the fire," he said. "The ones who sent Ernst last night." Ryan stiffened. "Ernst. That was the body behind the club?" "Yes," Cassian said. "You knew who he was?" "I knew he worked for someone who has taken an interest in our finances." Cassian's eyes never left mine. "Now I know you share that employer." "They are not my employer," I said. "Then what are they?" he asked. The word I wanted to use lodged in my throat. Saviors. They had pulled me out of the wreckage the system left me in, arranged the hospital, the forged papers, the quiet schools paid in cash. They had given me safety, then skills, then purpose. They had taught me to turn my trauma into a scalpel pointed in their preferred direction. Weapons. That was the other word. "They're my sponsors," I said, instead. They paid for everything after the fire. There were conditions. Of course, Cassian murmured. Ryan snorted. So our little survivor was picked up by the vultures who circle after we finish our work. If you think they just circle, you haven't been watching, I said. His eyes narrowed. Cassian steepled his fingers. What do they want from us? The same thing I do, I said. Answers, leverage, blood. Ryan laughed again. You see? At least she is honest about that. But you came first, Cassian said. You walked into Noir before they sent Ernst. Why? I knew they would stop me if I told them, I said. They want you gone, but on their terms. Slowly, carefully, with deniability. I stopped. Both men caught it. You wanted what? Cassian asked. My mouth felt dry. Something cleaner. Revenge, Ryan said. No, I said. Revenge is messy and loud. I wanted balance. I wanted the universe to look at what you did and move the scales back where they should be. Ryan shook his head, amused. Listen to her, Cass. She talks like a judge in a broken court. Maybe because she knows it is broken, Cassian said. He pushed away from the desk and approached slowly, the way he had the night before. My heart beat hard in my ribs, but not entirely from fear. There was something else, a sharpened awareness of the space he occupied, the heat of him, the dangerous gravity his presence created. He stopped near my chair, close enough that I had to tilt my head back again. You want balance, he said. Then here it is. Your parents were not innocent. The words hit like another shot in an alley. What? They were accountants, he said. Not for us. For a smaller outfit that thought they could play in our water without declaring it. They moved money that did not belong to them. They hid things. They broke deals. That's not true, I said. The denial came too fast, too automatic. What did they tell you about their work? He cut in. What did your father say when he stayed up late at the table with ledgers and whispered to your mother in a language you were not supposed to understand? I froze. He had not been in my kitchen, but he spoke about it as if he had. What did they say when they told you to hide? He pressed. Did they say it was a random accident, little one? Or did they say it was coming? My throat closed. In my earliest memories, my parents had been vague shadows of safety. Solid, gentle, overworked, underslept. My father smelled of coffee and ink. My mother of laundry powder and the soap she scrubbed dishes with when she thought no one noticed. But there had been late nights, closed doors, whispers, arguments in the hallway when they thought I was asleep. Words like risk and they will not wait forever and we should never have taken that money. I had filed those memories under the same category as the fire. Too much. Too heavy. Easier to flatten into a single story. Monsters came. My parents died. I survived. Cassian was picking up the edges and shaking the dust off. You're lying, I said again, but it sounded thinner. I do not need to lie to you, he said. Then show me proof. He nodded, almost approving. Now we are speaking the same language. He turned to the desk, pulled open a drawer, and removed a thin folder bound with a faded elastic band. He tossed it lightly onto the surface. Ryan, he said, fetch the ledger from the vault. Ryan stared at him. You keep that here? Where else? In the ground, Ryan muttered, but he left the window and disappeared through a side door. Cassian opened the folder and slid it toward me. Inside were copies of documents, old contracts, photocopied bank transfers, scraps of ledger pages. My father's handwriting leapt off the page, angular and precise, numbers arranged in neat columns, annotations in the margins. I recognized it because I had inherited the same discipline. "This is impossible," I whispered. "You recognize it," Cassian said. "Yes," I said. "But he would never—" "Never what?" he asked. "Steal? Lie?" He hated lies. Everyone hates lies until they need them. Footsteps returned. Ryan came back with a small black book in his hand. It looked harmless, something you might pick up at a stationery shop without thinking. He placed it on the desk with an audible finality. Cassian opened it to a marked page and turned it around. My father's name was there, in ink, along with numbers that spanned an entire line. "Your parents cleaned for a man who owed us," Cassian said. "He used them to hide funds that were meant to pay back a debt. When we came to collect, the money was missing. He gave us your address." Ryan's lip curled. He sold out his own accountants in under 2 minutes. Family men are like that. "We gave your parents an option," Cassian continued, ignoring him. "Return what was taken, or pay in blood." "And they chose what?" I asked. The word cut my mouth on the way out. "Stalling," Ryan said. "They chose stalling. They thought they were clever." "We do not tolerate clever," Cassian said. "We tolerate competent," Ryan corrected. "We kill clever." He said it easily, like reciting company policy. I stared at the ledger again, at the numbers my father had written. The ink had faded, but not enough to erase what it meant. He had stolen, or someone had used him to steal. Either way, we had been standing on a fault line long before the fire. Cassian's voice softened. "You want balance. Balance requires all the truth, not just the parts that make you the victim." "My parents were murdered," I said. "Whatever they did, they didn't deserve." "No one deserves anything," Ryan said. "They get what the world gives them, or what we take." "My problem is not what they deserved," Cassian said. "My problem is what their decisions created." "Me," I said, his gaze locked onto mine. "You." Ryan stepped closer, hands in his pockets, eyes glittering with interest. "So," he said, "what do we do with this beautiful complication? You spared her once. Now she returns with enemies on her back and questions in her teeth. I say we finish what should have been done 15 years ago." "That would be boring," Cassian said. "Boring," Ryan repeated. "You want entertainment?" "I want information," Cassian said. "She is information," Ryan replied coldly. "Information tied directly to people who are dismantling our routes and whispering in the ears of our clients. You saw Ernst. You see what they send. Kill their asset and send her back in a crate. That is how you respond." I looked at Cassian. His expression didn't change, but something in the air did. "I do not send children back in crates," he said. "I am not a child," I said quietly. Both of them glanced at me briefly, as if remembering I could speak. "Not anymore," Cassian said. "But they still see you as the girl they raised from ashes." "They see me as a tool," I corrected. "And you are tired of being their tool," he said. It wasn't a question. I thought of Ernst's body cooling in the alley, of the voice on the phone, calling his death a calculated risk, of the way they had told me I wasn't a free agent, only a weapon. "Yes," I said. Ryan sneered. "Listen to her. Betrayal sitting right there, and you want to invite it into our books." Cassian's gaze grew distant for a heartbeat, as if he was watching some internal calculation play across an invisible screen. When he spoke, his words landed with surgical clarity. "You want to kill her. he said to Ryan. They want to use her. She wants answers. I want control. He turned to me. Tell your sponsors, he said, that we are willing to negotiate. I stared at him. Negotiate what? A truce, he said. For now. They stop interfering with certain routes. They provide us with certain information. In exchange, we allow their weapon to remain operational under my supervision. Ryan stepped in front of the desk, face dark. You are offering them something they have not earned. I am offering them time, Cassian said. Time to decide whether they prefer to bleed quietly or loudly. His gaze didn't leave my face. They will never agree, I said. Then they will expose themselves, Cassian replied. And in the meantime, you will work for me. You will open their books as you opened ours. You will tell me where they hide, who they pay, how they move. You want me to betray the only people who kept me alive, I said. He did not flinch. They did not keep you alive, he said. I did. Twice. The room fell silent. It was a simple statement. No flourish, no self-congratulation. Just a fact. Ryan laughed softly. You hear that, little star? He is already writing you into his mythology. Enough, Cassian said without looking at him. I felt something dangerous and uninvited move in my chest. Anger, gratitude, resentment. A twisted tether, linking me back to that burning hallway. You kept me alive to use me later, I said. Yes, he said. Welcome to later. And if I refuse to help you? He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the desk. Then they will keep sending men like Ernst, he said. And I will keep killing them. And when I am bored, I will turn my attention to the one thing that keeps them invested. You. Ryan's smile sharpened. This is him being generous. Cassian's eyes held mine, unblinking, silver and merciless, and frighteningly honest. You are not safe with them, he said. You are not safe with me. There is no safe. There is only choosing the hand on your throat. And you think I should choose yours? I asked. I think you already have, he said. I hated how much that sounded true. Not because I trusted him, but because the people who claimed to be on my side had always spoken about me like a tool that could be replaced if it broke. Cassian spoke about me like a variable he had to solve, an anomaly in his perfect architecture. It was not love, it was not protection, but it was attention that did not pretend to be anything else. I sat back. Fine, I said. I'll open their books. I'll give you what you want. Cassian's gaze sharpened. Ryan's lips parted in surprised laughter. But, I added, I want something too. Cassian nodded once. Of course. I want the truth about that night, I said. All of it. Not just ledgers, not just debts, names, orders, every decision that led to my parents' bodies on the floor. You have some of that already, he said. I want the rest, I said. And I want your word that when this is done, you will give it to me. All of it. Even the parts that make you look ugly. Ryan snorted. That would be all of it. Careful, Cassian murmured. Ryan lifted both hands in mock surrender. Cassian studied me. My word is not something you should ask for lightly, he said. If I give it, I keep it. That is the point, I replied. He considered. The room waited with him. Finally, slowly, he said, You have it. The words settled over my skin like a weight. Promises from men like him were shackles and shields, both at once. Good, I said. Ryan shook his head, smiling in that way that meant he smelled blood. This is going to be a disaster, he said. I look forward to it. Cassian straightened. You will not interfere. Someone has to watch your blind side, Ryan replied. I do not have a blind side. You do now, Ryan said, looking at me. She has your attention. For a moment, anger flashed across Cassian's face, brief, hard, quickly contained. He turned to me. You will report to me directly, he said. Not to my brother, not to anyone else. Understood? Yes, I said. You will stay away from Noir outside of business hours unless I call you in. He paused. And you will give me access to everything you have on your sponsors. I don't keep files in my apartment, I said. That would be clumsy. Of course, he said. But you keep something. My hand instinctively moved toward my ribs, where the photograph usually rested. His eyes flicked down, caught the movement, and a faint shadow of satisfaction crossed his features. Bring it tomorrow, he said. All of it. He rose from his chair. The conversation was over. At some point, Ryan said lazily, we are going to have to discuss what happens when her handlers realize their favorite weapon is aiming the wrong way. We are not there yet, Cassian replied. You are always thinking 6 moves ahead, Ryan said. That does not mean the board will let you play. Cassian ignored him. His attention returned to me, as if Ryan's barbs were gnats against glass. Go home, Lyra, he said. Sleep. Tomorrow we start cleaning up the mess our fathers made. The plural caught me off guard. Our fathers. His gaze flicked for just a heartbeat to the ledger on the desk, then back to me. I understood. Whatever my father had done, Cassian's had taught him how to punish it. This will not end well for anyone, Ryan said. You are wrong, Cassian replied. It will end exactly as it should. I stood. As I reached the door, Ryan's voice followed me, soft and almost thoughtful. Careful, little star, he said. Men like my brother do not fall. They drag what they feel down to hell with them. I didn't look back. Outside the office, the hallway felt lighter, but only by degrees. The stairs creaked under my feet as I descended. Noir's skeleton crew moved through the shadows, oblivious to the altered geometry upstairs. When I stepped out into the daylight, the city hit me with all its indifferent noise. Cars, voices, the smell of exhaust and stale bread from the bakery on the corner. I walked without thinking, letting the streets guide me until I found myself on a bridge overlooking the river. The water below was dark, sluggish, dotted with trash and the occasional reflection of sky. I leaned on the railing and closed my eyes. Cassian's words swirled through my head, my father's handwriting on stolen ledgers, Ernst's body in the alley, Ryan's laughter, the way Cassian had said my name, Lyra, as if it belonged to a map he'd drawn years ago. He was supposed to destroy me. He still might. But somewhere between that hallway full of smoke and his office above Noir, something had shifted. I was no longer just the girl he left alive as a future asset. I had become a complication he could not erase without cost. The realization was not comforting. It was power. Not enough to win. Enough to negotiate. I took out my phone. There were already 3 missed calls from the number that had spoken to me last night. A message, too. Report. I typed slowly. Contact made. Terms shifted. Will update in person. I hit send. Almost immediately, the phone vibrated. You're compromised. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I typed back. No, I'm choosing a different weapon. There was a longer pause this time before the reply. You're making a mistake. I thought of Ernst, of the casual way they had accepted his death, of the way Cassian had looked at me, not kindly, not gently, but as if I were something he had to account for. not discard. Maybe, I wrote, but this one will be mine. I turned the phone off before the next message could arrive. The river moved below, slow and impassive. Somewhere behind me, in a building made of shadows and glass, a man who had been meant to destroy me was recalculating his empire around my existence. I did not know if he would fall. Men like him rarely did. But I knew this. Whatever came next, my name would not be a loose end murmured in smoke. It would be carved into the story in ink that refused to fade. Cassian Vale had spared me once out of strategy. He was sparing me now out of something he did not yet have a name for. And whether that became my salvation or my ruin would depend entirely on how willing I was to burn down every version of myself anyone else had ever tried to own. I pushed away from the railing. The city opened its mouth around me. I walked back toward Noir, toward the safe in my floor, toward the photograph taped to my ribs and the ledger waiting on Cassian's desk. If he was falling for the woman he was meant to destroy, he would not fall alone. And neither would I. If you liked the story, drop a comment for part 2, and don't forget to subscribe to Mara's Betrayal.